This is Jim Williams with the Hurricane City update for June 8th, 10 p.m. Well, we have unfavorable conditions right now in the Atlantic Basin because of a large upper low out here east of Bermuda, and that is causing primarily westerly winds through the Caribbean out into the Atlantic, which is upper level wind shear that chops the top off the thunderstorm tops and prevents tropical depressions from forming. However, there have been some very strong tropical waves coming off the coast of Africa, and they're traveling very far south, which is typical for this time of the year because the Azores high up here is pushing down on it on the intertropical convergence zone, and it's very strong right now, 1032 millibar pressure, high pressure out here pushing down, and so we do not expect to see tropical waves develop that far in the East Atlantic until sometime in July, and it should be an active July because things are really cranking off the coast of Africa right now. But interestingly, late in the week, some of the models are indicating that we're going to have a tropical potential development here in the western Caribbean Sea, and that's this tropical wave near the Windward Islands. By the weekend should be over here near the Central America coast, maybe near Belize somewhere here. And there is a possibility next week maybe some energy could make it into the Gulf of Mexico, but that's pretty much up for grabs at this time. It could end up going into the Pacific. Now, normally this time of the year in the Gulf of Mexico, we have a better chance than what's actually going on there right now. If I show you what's happening, this black line down here is the climatology for development, and right now we're down below that in the blue areas here, so things are not very favorable in the Gulf of Mexico right now, but that may change. If you look at the next image here, this is the wind shear, current wind shear versus climatology, and the black line is the climatology. But notice over the past couple of days it's really lowered the wind shear down here, and that would allow for development maybe going into next week if something gets some energy makes it into the Gulf of Mexico. So we'll be watching the wind shear in the Gulf, but right now it's calming down quite a bit in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll see if that trend continues. Now here's the sea level pressure chart from NOAA, and I like to show this from time to time because, you know, last year at this time we were looking at very high pressures in the Atlantic Basin, but if you look at right now, this is the current map, all the purple and blue areas indicate very low sea surface pressures, and generally that indicates that we have very warm sea surface temperatures, and that also produces large, intense hurricanes when you have very low pressures like this in the Atlantic Basin. So I'm very concerned about that going into the height of the hurricane season for very low pressure anomalies, and that produces big systems similar to like what we had in 2005. So we'll have to watch to see if that trend continues. Right now, I did my predictions on June 1st on the Hurricane Season Kickoff Show, Hurricane City broadcast June 1st. That can be found on the front page to archive subscribers. I made my top 20 picks like I do every year, and this year my top 5 are Vero Beach, Florida, Fort Walton Beach, Florida in the Panhandle, Fort Lauderdale, Florida in South Florida, Pascagoula, Mississippi, and Boynton Beach, Florida, which is just north of our location here in Delray Beach. The city that really stands out this year to me is Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and this area really concerns me going into the height of the hurricane season. Late August, going into September and October is the most likely time for Fort Lauderdale to be affected. This city tends to get hit when there's an average of 12 named storms in the Atlantic Basin, and 4 times in history they were affected 4 years later by a named storm. Of course, Ernesto affected the area back in 2006, and back in 2005 Hurricane Wilma came through the area, and 2 times in history, 5 years later, a hurricane passed through the area. So there's a rich hurricane history of getting hit 5 years later after a hurricane hits. And the dry May theory as well, that all 3 counties, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach County, reported below average rainfall, right around 3 inches, and anything under 5 inches is considered a dry May, and that's usually a pretty rich hurricane history when you have dry Mays of hurricanes coming through South Florida. And that is generally believed because of the high pressure ridge off of the East Coast. It causes dry conditions in South Florida in May, and that lingers through the height of the hurricane season, which draws hurricanes into South Florida. So I'm very confident about Fort Lauderdale, Florida being affected. Anywhere between Deerfield Beach and Hollywood, Florida, watch out this year. Generally 2 to 3 out of my top 5 tend to get hit every year, and I'm so confident of this pick that I'm willing to wear the chicken suit this year at the end of the season Right here, this is the last time I wore it when I screwed one of my forecasts up. I can't remember which one it was, but I will wear this chicken suit at the end of the year on the end of season broadcast if Fort Lauderdale does not have a hurricane pass within 60 miles of that city, and that's how confident I am. So we'll see what happens with that down the road. But anyway, that top 20 pick list is on the predictions page. Now, one reminder, I did want to tell people that on the live HurricaneCity.tv page, we are streaming the cams from the floor of the Gulf of Mexico with the oil spill. We have the ticker going at the bottom, which is showing over 36 million gallons of spilled so far. That's based on 791,000 gallons a day, which is a pretty fair assessment of how much oil is spilling. It may even be higher than that. But this is going to be a long haul, and it's going to have huge implications for the hurricane season, especially when we get into August and September, as I fully expect there's going to be a lot of activity in the Gulf of Mexico this year, especially the northern Gulf. So we hope they get a cap on this thing very quickly because we're running out of time here. Also wanted to mention on the predictions page, if you are interested in what the winds are going to be doing down the road here, there is a link here for wave forecast in the Atlantic Basin. So let's go ahead and pull this up. And this pretty much tells you the wind flow that's expected over the next week or two. And the blue areas on the map indicate very calm seas, but notice it's primarily southeast winds here and southerly winds. Of course, this is going into 99 hours here. This is going into June 13th. South-southeast winds, light winds. Going into the 14th, it continues to be light winds. 15th, light winds. And the 16th as well, light winds, southeast winds, very light to moderate chop on the water. So there's going to be no relief for the southerly flow into the northern Gulf of this oil. But it looks like it's good news for the people around Apalachicola and further east. The wind is going to keep it probably away from you, but anybody in the Florida Panhandle, west of Apalachicola, Florida, all the way through Louisiana, central Louisiana, need to keep an eye out for the oil spill coming your way, because the wind fetch is going to continue onshore. Well, that's it for now. We wish everybody the best of luck in the northern Gulf Coast and the remainder of the hurricane season. Remember, come right back here. Every few days I'll have an update on the tropics, and then when things get really active, we'll do daily tropical update videos with models and everything else. So spread the word. Thank you again for visiting Hurricane City.